For some context, my mom, at the time, was working 40 to 50 hours a week, so while on vacation from school, I was responsible for watching my younger sister. I was a high school junior at this time, and I had babysitting experience, so I decided it was okay. I didn't get paid to watch my little sister, but she was a relatively good kid, so it wasn't much of a hassle either. Before my mom went to work, she gave me the normal rules and told me to make sure I keep an eye on my little sister. I shrugged her off and sat on the couch to watch some TV. My sister raced down the stairs 15 minutes later and asked me if she could go next door to collect some old dolls our neighbor had promised her. It was a sweet old lady who was about 65 and had grandkids me and my sister's age. I told her it was fine and to be back in 5 minutes, to which she put on her sandals to go retrieve those dolls. Around this time, my sister still had a bad habit of leaving the door wide open. I didn't mind most of the time because it was pretty hot out and we lived in a safe public neighborhood. There was slim to no crime there, and everyone knew everyone else. That being said though, if you do something bad, your parents will know about it within the hour. I know you're reading this and thinking how dumb it must be to leave the door open, but like I said, it was a very safe place. While my sister was taking off next door, I decided to use the restroom. We have 2 bathrooms, one half bathroom downstairs for guests and one full bathroom upstairs. While I was in the bathroom downstairs, I could hear my sister slamming the door closed and walking up the stairs to her room. I finished up, flushed, washed my hands, then sat back down on the couch to watch TV. Curious as to what my sister had received, I called out her name. No answer, just a muffled rustling of toys. I decided to leave her alone and turn my attention back to the TV. I was so into the show I was watching, I didn't notice that my little sister was standing right across from me. It didn't click for me at first that I hadn't ever heard her come downstairs. I just stared at her, annoyed that she kept staring at me. I paused the TV and asked her what she wanted. She looked at me wide-eyed and told me someone was upstairs. I laughed at her and told her that wasn't funny. Still though, she was visibly scared. At first, I thought she was joking. I asked her if she had come back home a few minutes ago. She said no. She said the door was closed when she arrived and pointed to the disregarded box of dolls by the back door. I walked into the kitchen, called my dad to come over, and grabbed a big knife from the kitchen drawer. Walking back into the living room, I told my sister to go into the bathroom and lock the door behind her. I told her not to open it until I told her Mom was home, so she would know it was me. I crept up the stairs and peeked into each room one by one until I got to my little sister's door. It was cracked open, and the toys and clothes that were normally organized now littered her room. I didn't wait. I kicked open the door and flicked on the light. My blood instantly turned cold. In my little sister's rocking chair sat this little old woman, rocking back and forth with a plastic baby doll. I stepped further into the room and demanded she get the fuck out of my house. I wasn't raised to curse at adults, but this was a strange woman in my little sister's room. She stopped her rocking instantly and started to hum the tune to a baby lullaby. The most terrifying part wasn't that she was pretending that baby was real. It was the unnatural smile stretched across her wrinkled face. She stood up and giggled on the way out and down the stairs. I stood there staring at the room, trying to see if anything was missing. I didn't even notice that she'd taken the doll with her. I walked back downstairs and checked the room before letting my little sister know she could come out after I locked the doors. By then, my dad was pulling up in the driveway up front. I told him what had just happened. He walked around and checked the rooms like I had. While he was upstairs, my little sister told me the old lady knew where she had been and tried to get her to come with her. The creepiest part was that my sister told me she sounded like she was attempting to sound like me, but when she didn't say Mom's home, she stepped away from the door. I don't know who that was that walked into my house to steal my little sister's doll. To be completely honest, men usually never hit on me or approach me at all. This is because I'm a very large woman. It's weird when they do. It's only happened twice in the last 6 or 7 years. The first of those times was okay, but a little uncomfortable, since I was in an elevator with this complete stranger in my apartment building, and he kept asking me out for coffee. I know I'm not attractive, so I never believe people when they act like I am. I'm also not looking to date. The second time, however, just happened within the last hour. After work, I took the bus down to the grocery store. It's a few minutes in the opposite direction from my apartment, but they have some pretty good deals, so I like to go at least once per month. As I was starting to walk away from the bulk foods area, this is also the only store with sesame glazed cashews, so I was getting some, I heard someone call out something like, "Hey!" There were other people in the area, so I figured this person was trying to get the attention of a deli or bakery employee nearby or something. I saw him out of the corner of my eye, but paid no attention and walked off to continue my shopping. I had used the phone in the store that automatically rings up the taxi company to call my ride before exiting, and walking off to the side where the benches are to wait for it to arrive. A few people walked behind the bench as they also left. Then one stopped and said, "Hello." I still paid it no attention. The only person I talk to beside customers at work is my sister, and she was back at our apartment. He came a little bit closer and cleared his throat and said, "Excuse me." I turned. It was that same guy. It was then that I realized he'd been trying to get my attention inside the store earlier. "Oh, hello." I smiled. I really am anxious out in public, but I'm decent at faking friendliness at least. "Do you live around here?" "No, I'm just waiting for my ride home." Well, I live just over there." He pointed at the townhouse complex across the street. "I can give you a ride if you'd like." Well, that was fast and forward. "Oh, thanks, but that's alright. I already called my ride and it's on my way." "Are you certain they're coming? Because it's no problem for me to drive you." I assured him that my ride was for sure on the way. He kept trying over and over to get me to come with him, despite my polite refusals. He offered up to put his number in my phone as well, so I could call him any time, day or night, and he would come pick me up. Well, that was creepy. I told him the truth and said I don't have a cell phone. He immediately challenged that by asking how I called for a ride then. I told him there was a phone inside the store that I used. "Are you worried that if I gave you a ride, your husband would kill me?" "Husband? Yeah, right. I'm 35 and never even had a boyfriend." "Oh, he might. He can get like that sometimes. Better if I just take my cab when it arrives," I lied. "Well, you don't have to tell him that I gave you a ride." "That wouldn't be very honest of me. Besides, the folks at the taxi company know who I am, so I can't just no-show them." This was true. I'd been a regular for the past 6 years, and they even knew me by voice now. He then asked where I'm from. I told him I was from this general area. He told me that he was from Africa. I could tell that already, so I just politely asked which country. He told me and then started talking about being from a tribe and how tribes would fight each other for things. Mostly about how whichever tribe won, they could marry the woman from the other tribe and not have to pay for the privilege and whatnot. I was just praying that my cab would come soon. I kept turning to check. Finally it arrived. I stood up and told him, "Looks like my ride is here." I hopped in the cab and thanked the cabbie for saving me, and finally we were off. That guy must have offered me a ride at least a dozen times. But that wasn't the end of it. As I was getting my stuff out of the cab once arriving at my complex, the man drove past me. He doesn't live here either. He followed me the entire way. I don't know what he hoped to accomplish, since the buildings are secured, and he doesn't even know my first name, let alone my last, which is the only name listed beside the buzzer. I hustled my fat ass into the building, and I hope I don't meet that guy again. When I was a teenager in the late 90s, I briefly worked at a stupid gothy boutique in a big US city. Not Hot Topic, it was more expensive and straightforward goth/postcard punk. This was the 90s after all. Most of the staff were young, silly, cliquey snobs. The customers ranged from perverts to tourists to wannabe rock stars, riding the first tech bubble. The boss was this raging coke and meth head who would flip out from glassy-eyed smiling BFF who adored you to lying, manic-aggressive paranoid monster. Coke boss would, for no reason at all, suspect random staff of conspiring against him. He regularly fired people on a whim, seemingly inspired by paranoid fantasies. Later on, I found out that of course his mom was funding the whole operation, but I never personally had an issue with Coke Boss. I was good with customers, got along with staff, and generally kept my head down and sold lots of ugly pleather crap, so whatever. One day I was taking the bus from shady crap town to goth hellhole for my shift. There was a big stretch during which the bus didn't stop. Pretty sure it was the express stretch. Lots of boarded up buildings and sketchy strip malls, then a bunch of overpasses. It all looked gray, abandoned, and full of garbage. You know the look. Since it was a long-ass bus ride, I zoned out, staring at the window. There were maybe 8 or so people on the bus if I recall correctly. I was sitting in the very back corner, basically the farthest away you can get from the doors or anywhere to run. Most everyone else was near the front. Suddenly I got that feeling, you know, the one mentioned often. The whole being watched and the hairs on the back of your neck stand up thing. I could just tell something was wrong. I glanced around the uncommonly quiet bus. There was a guy pacing up and down the aisle. He looked disheveled, underweight, wild-eyed and agitated. He had this huge knife in his hand, bigger than the biggest you'd usually see in a kitchen set. I don't know how long he'd been on the bus, or how long he'd been doing this knife guy thing, but he was really into it now. This is the part where I tell you about the shit I've seen in the city. Blah blah blah, I've seen worse and weirder, etc, etc. But this seemed different right away. Knife guy wasn't an unhinged tragedy who was maybe having a breakdown. He straight up looked like he was actively trying to decide who to stab first. Knife guy was halfway down the aisle at this point, facing my direction. His eyes were darting around manically. If it hadn't been so scary, it might have almost been funny. He genuinely looked like generic scary dude from Central Casting. The knife was no longer just at his side. He was raising it in front of himself. He's holding it in the classic handle on the thumb side, blade on the pinky side stabby stab style mode, straight out of a horror movie. His eyes are darting around, and nobody is doing anything. This all happened right within a matter of moments. The knife guy looks right at me. I'm all alone in the back. He's still doing the psycho shower scene knife stance, and without breaking eye contact, he starts walking toward me very deliberately. I remember feeling nothing but incredible calm in that moment, staring at him and thinking, well, I guess maybe I'll die now. It was like I rocketed through the stages of grief straight to acceptance. Totally one of those you never know what you'll do till you're in it moments. Apparently my will to live decided to immediately peace out. He's picking up the pace with this big knife out, but somehow everything seems to be slowing down. Not only is time slowing, it feels like everything is physically actually slowing down. Then I realize that it is. The bus has slowed, then stopped. Even though there's no bus stop and nobody pulled the cord, the bus pulls over to the side of the road and the doors open. The bus doesn't move. The driver doesn't move. Nobody moves. The knife guy stops in his tracks too. He then turns and looks at the door. He looks at me. He looks at the door. He looks back at me. It takes a moment, but he drops his arm and casually gets off the bus like nothing ever happened. The doors close. The bus sits there. I see out the window knife guy crossing the street. He throws the knife in the city trash can and runs off. The cops pulled up soon after. I still have no idea how or when this all happened, who knew what and when, but the bus driver obviously had done his best, and it turned out alright in the end. I decided to violate my never snitch rule and go to the station to give a statement. I was totally numb. The cop was nice and gave me a ride to work so I wouldn't be late. When I walked in, the coke boss was there, and he was in one of his moods. The shop was busy and he was flitting about getting in everyone's way, fussing around with things. Something about the loud, garish, stupid environment with the stupid music, and the a-hole customers, the snobby staff, and the cuckoo coke boss getting in everybody's face made me break. I started shaking and went to the back to clock in. Now I was starting to realize what actually just happened. The Coke boss followed me into the back and starts in, his syrupy, phony, "How's it going, girlfriend?" with his plastered-on smile. I was obviously not okay. I started spilling how the cops dropped me off. I thought I was going to die, how he had this huge knife. I was struggling not to cry. The Coke boss just stared at me. Then he goes, "I don't have time for this shit," and goes back to the sales floor. That night I got drunk, and the next day was a no-call on purpose and got fired. Coke boss, whatever you are, fuck you. Let's not meet again. Oh, and you neither, knife guy. What is up, guys? Blue Spooky here, as always. Thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you made it this far to the end of the video. If you enjoyed the content that you heard in this video, please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you feel so inclined. If you do decide to subscribe, make sure to hit that bell button right beside the subscribe button and turn notifications to all. Although if you would prefer not to do that, I also upload videos every day, so you can just come and check every now and again, and you won't miss anything. I did try to do some different editing stuff this episode to make my audio quality a little better. Let me know what you guys think, if you notice any difference or not. I think it sounds pretty good, but I will have to leave that up to you guys. If you guys would like to send in your own stories to be read on the channel, you can go ahead and take a look in the description below the video. You will find links to all of my social media, including my Gmail, Facebook, and Twitter accounts. Go ahead and send me a message on any of those, and I will try to get back to you on your story as soon as possible. If you do decide to send in a story, please be sure to include in the tagline what the name of the story is if it has one, what type of story it is if it has one, and how you would like to be credited in the description of the video the story appears in. If you decide to send in a story, please make sure to include proper grammar and spacing if you can, as well as much information as you feel comfortable sharing. That will give it the highest possibility of appearing in a video in the future. If you guys have any criticisms on anything I can do better, please be sure to leave those in the comments as well, as I am always looking for new ways to improve the channel. If you guys like my stuff here, as always, I have two other channels that I run, called Mr. Blue Skies and Darkest Hour respectively. I do true crime videos and documentaries on dark things that have happened in history on the other one. So if you like my stuff here, check those out if you feel like it. Maybe those will be for you. Overall though, guys, I think that's pretty much it for now. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.